All right, everybody. Welcome back to the Premier Madden Podcast. It has been a minute, but we finally figured something to talk about today. So joining me to talk about more video game nonsense is my man, Anthony. What's going on, bro?
What's going on, Finn?
And Rob should be – oh, what's going on, Rob? Nice to have you here, man.
What's up?
Right on time, bro. What's up? Another day, another 20 minutes late. I'm kidding. Not really, but we are here, all three of us, finally, to talk Madden football. So we got the patch out, and they're going through their due diligence here. Due diligence, say that 5 times fast, to kind of fix that up. The PlayStation already got their kind of emergency hot fix. I know you've played a game, Anthony. Did it feel any different or still work in progress?
Yeah, I played 2 games after the first update. It felt a little squirrely. I think they fixed some things after that, and it seemed back to normal. I didn't notice anything outrageous or anything much different, honestly.
Follow-up question, what does squirrely mean?
Squirrely, just real weird plays, man. Like glitchy plays. I was telling you earlier about this sack where my quarterback got sort of bent in half, which could have resulted in a fumble, sure. But the ball shot out at about waist height, made a completely horizontal beeline through the defense into a linebacker's hands. Right. So there were multiple magnet pull plays that felt very, very uncomfortable and random.
I think this is a product of the engine changes we're getting and mechanic changes we're getting every year. Because I don't remember some of these plays happening in previous Maddens. One of the things that keeps popping up on my end is this. Tipped balls in the NFL don't go 20 yards in the air. They just don't. I'm
volleyball
okay
serves are not where they purposely send them in the air. Don't go that high.
Right. So I get the concept of a ball bouncing up in the air, but more often than not, it bounces in the general vicinity of the player. And a lot of the times you'll see a receiver come down with it, which I have yet to see that animation of the same receiver. Normally it's just it just gets bounced up. For some God knows why reasons, 20 yards up in the air and 10 yards downfield, so a receiver just happened to be in the area. That feels a little too scripted for me. It's really bugging me. But we'll give it time. I say in a couple episodes we can kind of sit down and talk about gameplay again. Obviously, when you push a big patch out, there's going to be bugs. That's the nature of an EA game. It just happens every year. So what we are going to be talking about this episode is user linebacker. I don't know if I want to dub it the school of the user linebacker, Premier Madden's Madden School or Madden Academy, whatever you want to call it. But we have not one but both of the user interception leaders for the Premier Madden League, and you two gentlemen here. So we're going to talk about you guys. I'm the greatest user on the Xbox ever. So I'll share my wisdom with you guys. But what I want to do is kind of set up the kind of outline of what we'll talk about, and then we'll cut you loose here with one of their things. So we want to talk a little bit about some general tips. I think everybody kind of gets the basic gist of playing as a user linebacker. What are some of your key things? What are your key things pre-snap, post-snap, that are just that make you feel like you have that edge? Maybe some situational football. What are the things that you're looking out for? So let's start with Rob, who is the Tremaine Edmonds god. 14 user interceptions this year. Go a little bit through how you approach user linebacker from a pre-snap perspective. Is there anything special that you do, that you build any special plays that you have dialed up that you feel comfortable with in more so than other plays with the user linebacker?
Plays, not so much, because, if possible, I like to send heat so that they have to make a snap decision. They don't have time to just sit back and dissect the defense. But really, and most of the time, if I'm using a linebacker, it'd be for alert purpose. It would usually be a zone, so I have the freedom to move around and not have somebody wide open. But pre-snap, I like to one thing I like to do. I like the other person to know that I'm usering, right? Because it's a lot of times someone likes to just see okay, yeah, they're using. I'm gonna make sure I'm gonna throw at that because I think it can beat you. And a lot of times that comes into play like post snap, where you make them think that they can beat you. That's a big part of like using the linebacker for interceptions at least. But yeah, like I like to just make sure there's some heat so they don't have all the time in the pocket, and letting them know that I'm using the player. So that might mean like moving around, like just kind of going back and forth, just so they can obviously see it's not just like the CPU like walking up to the line or something.
So you like letting them know who you are?
Yeah, I mean sometimes like I'll do the exact opposite, and like I'll use her like if I pick somebody off like twice already with Tremaine Edmonds, right? They're not going to keep testing it. Like that's just obvious. You're not going to do something that's not working.
I mean, that's what common sense would tell you, but otherwise.
Yeah, so yeah, I mean you're right, but so sometimes what I'll do is like I'll just take outside linebacker, move him around the outside, so they're like, okay, yeah, he's obviously using him, but then I'll just switch over and not touch anything with Premier Edmonds. I'll snap, there's a blitz, whatever, that's real quick, and I might get another one. But for the most part, yeah, I like to have them like think that they can just pick on the user.
More so in this Madden and others, you can pick on the user. It really depends. One with sliders, if it's really possible to kind of get the ball down the sidelines and stop people from overloading the middle of the field. Because one of the big metas over the last couple of Maddens have been bringing safeties down into the box and really stacking up the middle of the field, forcing people to throw at corners, and then letting all Madden kind of take over the interceptions there, which seem to be some of the big reasons people are throwing interceptions in this league on top of the users. I do like what you said about moving him around to let him know that it's you. It's that factor of, whenever you teach kids like on dirt bikes, I know this is a really obscure example. You teach them how to drive, or anybody how to drive. You don't tell them to look right in front. You tell them to look where they're going, right? And it'll naturally guide you there. And that kind of works against them, those instincts, because they start getting so wrapped up in your user that they're not even looking at their offensive progressions. They're just watching where your user's at. They've already decided where they're going, and they watch your user. And then when you add heat, the blitz on top of that, I think that's a real effective way to get to the quarterback. Now, my question for Anthony, and you can add on as well to what we were just talking about, as well as answer the question here, is what are your keys on what the offense is doing? Are you really worried about, are you just kind of worried about down a distance? Are you doing any kind of play recognizing beforehand?
I mean, I think that play recognizing comes with a lot of experience from sort of running routes with receivers. So sort of learning the common route combinations based on seeing something right off the snap. So, if you see a tight end dropping into the flats, like you know that there's potentially a slant coming or a deep post coming from some direction. So those are things that you catch on with, as you've played it a lot and as you've done it a lot. I actually am not even that experienced with it. I'm on maybe my third year as a middle linebacker user. My first year was the year they introduced ball hawk, I think. And I actually broke a record with like 24 interceptions or something with some guy. That was the year that the awards were crazy with the XP. I had him to like a 95 speed linebacker at that point. And it was unstoppable. But this year they definitely made it to where you've really got to be in the right position. It seems like they fixed it a little bit based on the way that it was when this year started. It was almost impossible to lurk. But as far as reading it from pre-snap goes, I kind of expect either the tight end. You're usually going to cover the tight end, I think, and take that safety blanket away. And a common thing that people like to do is send their tight end on a hot route, just a 9 route, and that's one that you can usually kind of play tight. And if you've got a good user linebacker with good jump, sort of play it to where they think that they're like, oh, it's open, cover 2 right over the middle, but you're lurking just a little bit to make it think that it's open. So that's probably my favorite thing, is to bait people, that you're gonna make them think that you've overplayed something or that you're out of position. Really, you're just waiting for them to hit that button so that you can commit and get back into position with a fast, tall guy with good jumping, basically.
I could see that. And you're definitely right about this Madden versus other. It really makes you choose. I think, for me, the most important thing that you can do is recognize the offensive play. So whether that be something they've run multiple times, you got to key in on their big plays early, right? I always say, like, you can beat me once with that formation, but you're not going to beat me twice. And then 2, you're not really always going to play against guys that scroll through the playbook, choose their own plays kind of deal. What often happens is you end up getting a dude that runs the same shit that everybody's been running for the last 5 Maddens, okay? So 4 verts, I see the tight end go vertical post snap. You follow the tight end for a second, jump over to Y. You know what I'm saying? Like, it undercut that ball easy. Very rarely do people make any changes to disguise 4 verts at all. Bench is another one. You see tight slots, watch for the out routes in the corners, and then dedicate yourself to one side, and then audible or hot route the other side of the formation. At least kind of be prepared for that kind of deal. Obviously, there's going to be you play bench and then you get caught with the tight end ankle play. You know what I'm talking about, where it's like both tight ends or both people on the right end up running like crossing routes across the field. And it kind of
that's what everyone loves to do, man. That's the one that you can – that's usually where your lurks are going to come from when people do those double crossings or slants or posts or sometimes even triple. And you think that you make them – like I said, once again, you bait them. You make them think that you're stuck on that inside receiver, that underneath receiver, and then at the last second you spin around, tail out, and get the guy following him because that's usually what their first read is.
Right. I think Rob made a good point earlier, especially I think this is big for third and long, especially in these Maddens. Last Madden, you could just hoard the deep outs, right, to get your first down.
Yeah.
This one, it's a little bit harder to convert some of those deep plays, but you can't really give people time. So Rob mentioned kind of not only disguising his user, which I think is huge. Now, Rob is kind of using it as like, hey, this is me over here, and then switching back. I kind of will go and use her a corner, or I'll use her a nickel corner instead of my linebacker. That way, they're post-snap, they're searching for the user, first of all, because they don't want to get lurked, and then that gives them time for the rush to get in. I think that's huge. So it's a good point from Rob. I got another question for you, Rob. Are you a cover 2 user, or are you a cover 3 user?
Well, if possible, cover 2 is probably better for user because cover 3, it has the holes that you can't, like, okay, so cover 2, the holes are, you obviously have the deep middle of the field, you have it underneath, and then maybe like way on the sideline, like far sideline. It would be,
but nobody throws that ball in Madden.
Yeah, especially on slide like this, it's almost impossible to throw. So like for a user, especially someone like Tremaine Edmonds, I'm going to be able to cover that deep post if I'm smart, because you're not going to have like a double deep post. Like if you have a levels concept with that deep post, maybe you'll be able to get me, but it's going to be hard to you don't see that a lot. And so like a cover 3, you have like seams. Like a lot of times you can't cover both those seams.
Mm-hmm.
You like underneath is pretty well depending on how you run your cover 3, but you can get beat deep, and like there's a lot more holes that the CPU and the coverage decides more than your user does. So if possible, cover 2 is probably better. But
I don't mean to cut you off. I see a lot of people in cover 3 make the 2 corners on each side run deep halves instead of deep thirds, and then taking the middle third safety and using him to come up and play that opposite seam. So you'll have your linebacker play one seam, maybe even man up the slot receiver or whatever, and then you come under and play the other seam and kind of help with that to kind of cover up the cover 3 zones. Now, when you're playing cover 2, are you going deep with Edmonds? Because that's going to leave you to a smart player. I'm running an underneath slant under that post. Or if you go like Redskins playbook, stack Y flex, if you run like fade out, which is like my favorite go-to for cover 2 users, because it's a tight end, or it has 2 posts from the same side, slot and the outside receiver both run posts. So once you bite on the first one, the second one's lane opens up very clean. So I've seen some people take the middle safety, or not middle safety, the middle linebacker, and deep blue him. Middle third would be the coverage adjustment, and then just use one of the yellow zones. Is that what you're doing, or are you going to straight up like force them to just pass underneath and you're going to cover the deep ball?
It depends on a lot of things. Like depends on the formation they come out and everything. Especially like you said, like if you recognize something they're using or they're going to over and over again, I might do that a few times. Like I have a few other like user linebackers who are okay on this team. but also like if you base a line, you can put your outside linebackers into a deep blue as well in some formations. Like you can do a lot of things with the defense. But like what I like to do is I'm not going to just start off going deep. If I'm going to have to make up ground, I'd rather have them make a real tight window throw with me making up ground than them getting easy dink and dunk, because I'm just coming out immediately showing that I'm going deep. Like Anthony said, like it's a lot of trying to lurk them. You want them to think it's open. So when you said you bite on that first tight end route, that fade out, whatever, I would never like really 100% bite on that, because I want you to think, oh yeah, I'm going to it, and then once the route like goes past my zone, and the other guy starts to break open, I would go straight to him.
That's the thing, is it's not – the reason it works for me is because nobody's watching the deep outside routes with the user. They're normally watching the slot and the tight end. The slot and the tight end, because everybody runs 3 wide receiver sets. Maybe you got the eyes for it. I don't know. But
that play you're talking about –
whatever you're doing's got you to 3 and 4, Rob. So you might want to change it. A tough loss to the Colts. We'll talk about that later. Let's get to Anthony here. Anthony, what are some of the biggest, bad practices? What do you see people doing wrong with their user linebacker?
Trying to move too much, trying to shift from one side to the other side. Like, you've got to kind of pick a route early on and just go with it. And then you've got to this year the mechanic is built around sort of spinning. The more you spin, the less speed you lose. But if you try to make quick cuts, it slows them down quite a bit. And then I think the other thing, the most common like sort of noob thing to do for middle linebackers is to, like I said, stick with that first read, that first slant route, crossing route, whatever, and follow it, to not spin off and get that second read. It's hard though, because you've got to choose, and if you're playing somebody with a good offensive line and they can wait for you to bail to that second route, and then the first route's wide open. And if the other guy's running deep routes, like it's just the middle of the field is wide open for them. Yeah.
Right. Now, are you guys a tap Y or hold Y kind of guy?
I've always been a tap Y based on like trying to catch it as a wide receiver. The ball hawk days, I feel like that doesn't really work that well anymore. The ball hawk days made it to where that was when I first started having success using middle linebacker, and that was like just too easy. Like I could, as soon as I knew you were getting ready to throw, I could just hold it down and my guy would make like an insane play. But I feel like it rewards you the closer you time the jump to it to actually hit triangle or Y.
Yeah, triangle Y, whatever. So in case you guys didn't know, you probably guys knew, when they introduced the Sim Arcade in competitive mode in the Madden, they talked a lot about user linebacking was going to take more skill, and then you'd have to time it with the catch. And then if you didn't time it right, you get a bad user time and get a drop. Well, that's only for competitive mode. That does not apply to Sim mode unless patched recently. So when it comes to like near the ball, you don't really have to time it. You could just hold Y. I don't know if you can hold Y like all the time like you used to be able to, like the old school Madden 17 days where usering was just bananas. But yeah, you don't have to worry about timing too much. And I think guarding just routes that don't matter. We talked about that dummy crossing route that everybody runs, but that I think it goes back to like the play recognition. They come out and for example, Rob, you're playing against a team. You call whatever play you call. They come out. They got 2 backs in the backfield. They got 1 wide receiver on the left side, and they have 2 wide receivers on the right side. And they're both kind of close to the formation, like both did. It's tight. It's not super tight. The receiver to the left is not all the way up against the left tackle, but he's kind of there. You get the formation I'm talking about? I think it's called split close.
I was thinking exactly that. Yep.
Split close, right? What play are they running?
Well, I mean, the play I run is
halfback wheel.
Halfback wheel. That's all. No, Rob, I don't need your 3 and 4 offensive tips. I need to know what everybody runs out of split close.
Okay, you're right.
I'm being mean to you.
No.
Right. And that's
I deserve it. But yeah, no, split close, with the post.
Rob's gone full. I am over here.
Here, I got you. This is what they're going to do. That PA wheel, they're going to throw that damn post that they always throw to. If not, a lot of times good players will user that other side to like a slant or something. So they got that high-low read, makes you force you to make a play on it.
Right. Most against 80% of the users, they're running halfback wheel, and they want the post. They want the post. And you just
I think that's not even in the Tennessee Titans playbook, which is what I use. And I think I picked a playbook without it because I didn't want to run that play all the time, because it's like one of those plays that you can get. It's like addicting almost because it works so well. And there's so many adjustments that you can make out of that play that make it almost unguardable. And I didn't want to abuse it, so I just picked a playbook with the two running backs without that play in it.
Right. But understanding what play you have to defend is huge, because that helps with the baiting thing that Rob was talking about earlier. And two, if this isn't necessarily just tips to be a better user linebacker. It might just be tips to stop throwing user picks. You know, it might benefit you to go grab a play in the playbook that you don't ever play, that you don't ever run.
Yeah. I mean, when I'm playing a good user linebacker, I will literally call every outside passing play that goes I won't that will be my 10th read, the guy that's challenging wherever the middle linebacker typically should or would be based on the defensive alignment. I'm throwing anywhere but that place. I don't understand why people continue to be like, oh, he's right underneath my receiver, I can throw it, past him, or I can lead him. And it's like, no, you can't, because the game is not made to where you can overtake a middle linebacker if it's, an above average athlete out there. Like, they're going to make the play if you try and test them.
Right. And getting used to, one of the things I like to do is I'll throw a seam by the tight end, and we'll run a slant from the other side, from maybe the slot. So they're going to follow the seam out the gate, and then they're going to think that you're about to go to the slant. You know what I'm saying? Like, everybody does it, and they're trying to bait you, and then high pass right at that moment where they're about to cross, just high pass to the tight end. Because one, they're not really going to pick off a high pass. Obviously, it's depending on what tight end you have, but if they drop off of it, like that anticipation, not being dumb and go, oh, I got him, and just throwing it. You have to high pass it or low pass it. Another thing I like to do is if I have a tight end and a running back on the same side, I'll run like a slant with the tight end and then a vertical out of the backfield with the running back. So as soon as the tight end cross, they're not, for me, most user linebackers I play aren't really watching the running back routes. They're watching the crossing. So they're going to see the tight end cross and they're expecting to cross from the other side. And that should open up the running back right there. You got to throw it pretty quick. You can't just wait for that to go to develop. But there's a lot of things that you can do with that. I
wish I could throw a high point pass. Every time I try to throw a high point pass, Josh Allen throws it out of the stadium.
Yeah, I wouldn't throw a high pass with Josh Allen.
No.
Yeah, it just doesn't work. I've tried.
So let's talk about your favorite user scenario and what really gets a lot of interceptions for you guys.
I mean, third and long.
Right. Four verts is coming.
Yep.
Four verts is coming.
Four verts is the easiest play to pick off because there's two routes and you're going to pick them off if you're smart. It's just
right. I like a late dig on cover four or on four verts from one of the outside routes, because once you clear them out, you can finally get it across, but not on third and long, right? If you're going to call it,
if you're gonna get it on four verts, you have to have like I was saying earlier, how sometimes if you're not going to fully commit to a route. Mm-hmm. You have to hope that you have great time in the pocket, and that tight end or that slot route, wherever formation come out of, that can fully develop and it gets behind the defense, because that seam, you're gonna try to bait him into throwing that seam or that tight end route, but you're never gonna fully commit to a route usually.
Right. The dead giveaway on four verts is the tight end, right? We're talking about more so trip sets, right, versus just a standard.
Mm-hmm.
So I like running single back trio. It's PA verticals technically, and I will just audible the tight end to a slant. So coming out of the play action isn't first quarter. Your user's not thinking, oh, I'm running four verts, or I'm playing against four verts in play action. Then they see the tight end slant, and you're getting them down onto that out of the play action. They're going to naturally flow, and if it's, this is my money play. Just hit that right in the middle of the two safeties is to the seam. So if you're going to run four verts, you got to be creative with it. That's what I'm getting to.
Yeah.
So 3rd and long. So my favorite is on the goal line. I intentionally call goal line defense that doesn't have corners, that has a safety out there. And the reason why is because people get so antsy when they see +2, +3, +4, +5 in the release height speed column, right? They get all antsy. They're like, oh, I can throw a post here. I'm going to win on the release. And you're overloading the run. They're going to get discouraged. And then I'll use her the corner. So in previous Maddens, I had my little superstar angle, and I would just use that. But you just use her the slant. You just use her. They have to throw it quick because everybody's coming. That's where I got a ton of picks, which is just being creative with the user and where I place it. Kind of throws people off. All right, we got 10 minutes left here in the podcast. So I think that's enough user tips. Is there any final tips you guys had to get off the books here?
Just to stick with it and to continue to try and get better. And it's not something that you learn after a couple weeks. You know, like I said, I've been doing it for 3 years. And it took me probably 2 or so to get halfway decent at it. So something you just got to learn, and you'll get more and more comfortable with it. And especially if you're transitioning from playing with the defensive end, like it feels like there's a lot going on. There's like people flying past you in different directions, but eventually that all slows down, and you start to be able to see what other guys are doing based on you know, what you would do in that situation for the down and distance type of stuff.
I got you. What about you, Rob? Any final thoughts on user?
Just like be ready to get like you said, if you're starting off, be ready to get beat. People are gonna test your user. It just recognizing, okay, like they've done this 2-3 times. Like, what am I doing? What can I change? So if you're biting too hard on a route or whatever, just adjusting things to make it the other way around. Instead of them playing with you, you're now anticipating what they're doing, and then that's how you're gonna get a lot better, and that's how you get user picks.
Right. My final thoughts on user linebacking is don't practice against the CPU. It's not going to work.
No.
It's not going to work. Get in a head-to-head. Try it out. Be able to stop the run. Don't give up. Don't give up the run. And be, you know, and it's real underrated. And you probably know this, you know, Anthony, as you're leading in tackles from the stat pages from I'm seeing. It doesn't matter how good your user is if you keep running yourself out of lanes and stuff like that.
Yeah. And they will abuse you if you are not filling in your gap in the running game and you're blitzing, you're calling man defense, man blitz, and you got everybody going and you try to overload one gap and they just happen to call it into your gap. They will bust you for a 75-yard touchdown any day. Like, you can be dominating defense all day long and just make one bad read in the running game, and it can totally screw you up. Pretty much less is more. Like, don't move around so much. Don't be flying around. Just stay where you're supposed to be and let the play develop for a second before you commit to one direction, and try and make a read based on what you're seeing from the initial snap. And do that by moving very, very little, honestly.
Anthony, I'm sure you've seen it a bunch of times, Anthony. When someone run a slant, you can just sit in the middle.
Oh my God!
And they will throw right at you. You don't even have to move.
It's insane, man. Like that's what I'm saying. Less is more with the user in the middle linebacker, honestly.
That, and don't leave yourself open to just getting, like, know your matchups, right? It doesn't matter how good you user in the middle of the field if you call cover one press man against John Ross or Tyreek Hill. Like, it really doesn't matter. You're going to get beat. So don't leave yourself, you know, that's why a lot of the user guys end up pouring cover 3. Or even cover 2 with minor adjustments. So make sure you're keeping yourself safe out there. All right, practice safe usering.
Wrap it up.
Don't try and hit stick all over the place.
X, or well, I'm not sure what it is for Xbox, but X being the conservative tackle. It took me a long time this year to realize that I need to stop trying to use square for tackles because it's the one that's set for big hits, and my guys were just sort of like flopping at them. They were too far away. X, I've been making crazy tackles way behind the line of scrimmage sometimes. It just seems like that's the button they want you to press for the majority of tackles now.
For sure. I think so. I think especially after they patched the hit stick in the beginning.
Yeah.
They really changed some things.
Yeah, it's not worth. Yeah, it's definitely no longer worth selling out for a big hit because the chances of getting a fumble are so minimal now that you just need to make the tackle and try again.
Gotcha. my last tip, and we're talking about roster creation. Don't be afraid to have your other linebacker be slow. Does that make sense? Like, don't be afraid to go grab a vet with high pursuit and like 79 speed.
Oh,
dude, if you're not going to be using someone, there's no need for them to be like.
Exactly.
I remember we talked about a lot in the beginning of the year. Like, if you're not using him, you have my dude got 87 speed. Like, he's gonna be crazy. He's gonna get cooked all game because you're not using him.
My favorite thing to do is go grab guys with high pursuit, high tackling, 77 zone. I don't need anything crazy.
Well, that's probably why I'm doing so well with Leighton Vander Esch, because I got Shawn Lee. I mean, that's the perfect guy that you're talking about right there.
Exactly. To help with the run, put you in good position, and then they can cover. I know Shawn Lee's got mid-80s.
Yeah. I mean, he's got 83 speed, 88 excel. So, I mean, the 81 zone. So, yeah, he can definitely cover, but that's not his specialty. But he makes it to where I can roam a little bit, and I know that he's going to be where he needs to be.
Every Madden I'll trade for like KJ Wright.
Yeah.
We'll have like 80 zone, 80, and after a season or two, he's at 79 speed. Nobody wants him anymore. Doesn't matter.
But then you can sign them for like those really, really cheap deals, and it's
right. And get him in for the run. They help a ton when you're base 4-3 and you're 3-4. You can already cover a lot of the field more than you should be able to with one linebacker in Madden. So you might as well shore yourself up in the other places. So I think that's a good place to stop. We shall probably do an episode covering the PML a little bit here, cover some of the big trades that are going on. We're getting to the playoff push. If you haven't already, go check out the Twitter, Premier Madden League. You can go find uploads on Anthony's Twitter over at is it NFL Retweet? Is that your YouTube handle as well?
Yeah.
YouTube handle as well. SGO, the Natural, he puts up videos every week for his games. Make sure you're checking those out. Be on the lookout for the live streams as we do commentary over some of the big games. Game of the week, me and Anthony did one for the Ravens-Browns game, and that's still up. It was once it hits the fourth quarter, just turn it off. Just fair warning if you really want to waste an hour and a half of time. So I'm going to give Rob here a week to figure out how he's going to defend his under 500 record that I've called out for the third time already. But we'll cut this one short here. So we'll catch you next episode on the Premier Madden Podcast.